The anti-Uber AB5 bill might actually put me out of business?
Xbox,
Twitter, Uber,
Postmates,
Netflix, MoviePass,
Google, Facebook, eBay,
DoorDash,
Apple, Amazon, Airbnb,
The Apptrepreneur. Hey everyone, this is Kevin the Apptrepreneur. If this is your first time here and you happen to like this content, please do me a favor. Click that subscribe button and ring that bell notification for more notifications of upcoming videos that we upload on a near daily basis. My tongue is a little tied right now. I am sorry. It is a very bad first impression, I know, but we will try. That's just one of the things about having a stuttering problem combined with Asperger's syndrome. But hey, we talk about the gig economy, e-commerce, streaming wars, and, even sometimes human rights, like, employee rights. I'm very passionate about that, actually. So anyway, we are going to talk about AB5 a little today, but we're going to talk about it in a very different way, because here's the thing. As much as I have pushed AB5 to be a thing, because I think for Uber, Lyft, Postmates, DoorDash, I think for all the people who work for these companies, AB5 will be a much better improvement. I have heard the argument, people don't want to be employees, they want to be independent contractors. I have made the counter argument, you are employees in everything but name. Uber and Lyft control how much you make, what you do. The only thing that they control whether or not you can be on the platform, off the platform. They prevent you from building your own clients. It's all Uber and Lyft clients and Postmates. The only thing you get to control that you can do that they can't make you do is to get on and off the app. That's all they do. So you are an employee and everything but name only. However, there are downsides to AB5 passing, and one of them, ironically, affects me. You might think this is a clickbait, but it's not. I'm actually going to share a personal story on how this might actually affect me as an independent freelance writer. Before we talk about any of that, I'd like to thank my sponsor, That Gig Worker, who helped me make videos like this, because obviously with AB5 maybe cracking down on some of my freelancing, I might need more sponsors. But anyway, what they are doing right now is they are collecting surveys from Uber drivers, because they want to know what you feel about Uber driving, what's it like, the pros, the cons, and it's a quick 5-minute survey. And what they will do is they will take the results of these surveys and they will send it to news organizations like Vox and Vice and some of the network television providers, and they are actually responsible for some of the information we have about drivers, and they need you to, help them out with that, and they will want to pay you for your time. So here's the thing, there's a link below, and it takes 5 minutes to do the survey, and guess what? After 5 minutes, you get $5. All you need is a screenshot of last week's Uber rides and a PayPal-ready email address so you can get paid at the end of the week. Trust me, it's well worth that 5 minutes. You can even do it while you are waiting for your next Uber ride in the airport queue. And what am I talking about when it comes to AB5 hurting freelance journalists? Well, this is what I'm talking about. Laws to protect Uber drivers could put freelance journalists out of business. Not every independent contractor is in danger of exploitation. This is why sometimes people don't like the government to get involved, because they tend to overreach, and I would agree. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I do outside of this channel. I'm not going to give too many details for privacy reasons, but I think it's funny that I have been accused by some people of being a failed journalist. Because here's the thing, I actually do freelance journalism as a side gig. I actually make money for writing articles. And yes, they are vetted, and yet once in a while a mistake is caught, but then the editor says this doesn't seem right, and so I, fix it. This is a very standard process on how this all works. So I actually get paid as a journalist. Now, some of you might be saying, well, where can I find my stuff online? Well, here's the thing. If you want to find my movie reviews, you can find them at www.icritic.net. As for articles I write for local papers and everything, I'm not going to share what those are, because here's the thing. They're usually written under pseudonyms. If you are going to do YouTube as a side gig, and in my case, it's becoming a main gig, you do not want your name conflicted with these things that you're going to be writing about. So, most of the people who publish my works, they know what I do, but because it is under a pseudonym, they are not bothered by it, because their advertisers can't search that name and find out, like, hey, this person makes these YouTube videos, and we're going to pull our advertising because you're hiring someone who's so clearly anti-Amazon, so clearly anti-Uber, so clearly anti-Disney, even though I'm not. I'm not anti-Disney, but I have very big issues with the way they run their company. And the new AB5 law says something about the thing that you can only write so many articles a month. Well, I write hundreds of freelance articles a month. It's a pretty good business. And I can't do that when AB5 takes shape and becomes law because journalists were not given an exemption to AB5. So let's look at this too. They're wording it better than I will. In 2003, I walked away from my full-time $80,000 a year job as the executive editor of a national magazine. I had no other job lined up. I just had a lunch, having worked in the publishing business for about a decade, that I could have a better work-life balance and make a lot more money if I put out a shingle as a freelance writer and editor. Being freelance is very lucrative when you do it properly, by the way. As it turns out, I was right. Today, I work fewer hours, I work only the hours I want, and I make 6 figures. I'm happier, I get to pick my projects, and I get to choose which editors I want in my life. I am 47 years old and with a career that is successful in pretty much every way. But that career will no longer exist if my home state of New Jersey and other states like it continue on their current path with independent contractor legislation, putting freelance journalists like me out of business. In early November, New Jersey followed California's lead and introduced Senate Bill 4204, nicknamed the Uber Bill. It is a version of California's recently passed law intended to solve a problem with the growing gig economy, and it is a problem, and I think most journalists would even acknowledge that. That problem, the state says, that the gig economy companies classify workers as independent contractors rather than employees, which means businesses can exploit workers by failing to give them health and other benefits, and that they don't have taxes taken out of their paychecks. New Jersey's Department of Labor and Workforce Development is going after Uber and its subsidiary in the courts for what the state says are about $650 million in unpaid taxes in my home state alone, which, by the way, I still think that's awesome that New Jersey actually called their bluff on that. New Jersey's legislation happening at the same time as the court action is intended to solve that worker misclassification problem by doing what California's AB5 did, codifying a legal standard for what an independent contractor is. Other states, including New York, are expected to introduce similar independent contractor legislation next, and presidential candidates Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders have said they support this type of legislation going forward. The laws are being marketed as a pro-worker, but the way they are being written is so strict that they are already starting to destroy the careers of people such as me who prefer to work for ourselves. Like, as a 6-figure freelancer, I am not the same as an Uber worker who may feel exploited. I have health insurance, I have a retirement account, and I have an accountant who makes sure I pay my taxes every quarter. This is true. I mean, now I don't have an accountant, by the way, but I do pay my taxes. I keep meticulous receipts of everything. By the way, some of you watch like my vlog channel and you see all of these discs and stuff that I buy, like movies, video games, toys, and you kind of wonder, do I even have time to play with all that stuff? And the answer is frankly no, not always. So why do I buy them all? Because my freelance journalists make those business expenses. That's why. So, you know, like this, believe it or not, is a business expense because I'm using it for business. It's funny how that works, right? But Uber drivers don't typically keep those meticulous receipts. I'm amazed how every single year we have to make a video, like me and the Uber community, not that there's much left of it, but you know, we have to make a video like how to pay your taxes. Like, guys, rideshare has been around for a long time. You should know how to do your taxes already. But there we go. The language in these independent contractor laws, though, make no meaningful distinction between exploited contract workers and people like me. Instead, the language makes it impossible for people like me to work within the letter of the law. And that's, by the way, a fair point. Because here's the thing. Independent contractors, like what I do with the freelance journalism, I choose my rates. There's like a rate negotiation between me and the editor. Like, they will offer me this much to write this article. I will say, I would prefer this much. They say, we'll pay this much. And I'll either accept that or I'll say, could you consider coming here instead? It's a negotiation process. So once we've got that all figured out, I write the article and I'm paid. And then we either decide we like each other and want to work with each other once again, or we don't. And by the way, when I have that relationship, I can even use other editors as kind of bargaining chips, like saying, well, I'm getting paid this much money from this person for this article, so, you know, would you want to pay this much for this one? This is how it works. It's a bargaining deal. Uber and Lyft drivers in Postmates and DoorDash don't get to do that. They don't get to do that. So yes, there is a distinction on how this works. And the way AB5 is written, admittingly, and I wish it was revised just a little before it was passed, is that, hey, guess what? You know, when you have certain freelance jobs where you can name your own rates and stuff, I don't think those should fall under this umbrella because they're negotiating their rates. They are independent, even if the work they're doing is not outside what the company does. Like, this is why I hate Uber and Lyft. Like, why they had to ruin everything for everyone. You know, they're kind of like Netflix. They were big babies. It's like, oh, this is the future. We're doing it our way. This is the better way. And no thoughts whatsoever about how you're affecting anyone else. Selfish jerks. New Jersey's S4204, for instance, says I have to do all my work outside all of the places of business of the employer. That means I can't spend even 1 or 2 days of an 18-month front page project outside my home office having meetings with my editors in a place like the Washington Post newsroom. How is any freelancer, no matter whether she is a journalist or a graphic artist or a public relations specialist, supposed to run her business if she never takes meetings on any client's premises? The upshot, yeah, that's kind of like being a realtor and not being able to show the house off. I understand where they're coming from. The upshot of clauses like that one in S4204 could be crippling fines for employers, and because of that threat, according to testimony given during a standing room only hearing in New Jersey's Capitol last week, editors and publishers in New Jersey are already saying the same thing the ones in California are saying to freelancers there. Thanks, you're great, but we'll find our writers and proofreaders elsewhere. So, by the way, I'm not 100% concerned about this because this obviously means that if I'm going to continue to freelance, I will just have to freelance for companies that are in other states other than California. It'll be hard to build this clientele, but hey, I don't mind making a few extra business trips. You might even see me on location a little bit more often, and if you do, that's because I am dealing with these editors. I have to get work outside of California. Thank you, AB5. These states, in writing such overly broad legislation, are hanging a giant toxic neon sign around the necks of the middle class, and these laws spread across the country. Everyone from truck drivers to caterers to yoga instructors has their livelihood in their crosshairs. The people testifying in New Jersey that their careers would be hit have ranged from lawyers to wedding photographers to bakers. Newspaper representatives tried to explain that people who deliver those papers are independent contractors, and if this legislation becomes laws, citizens will no longer get their local news delivered to their homes. Well, look, they probably will. They'll just do it through the internet. Sorry to say. I do think the idea of having a paper boy, not that I want those jobs to be gone per se, but it's that job has been around for a long, long time, and very few people use it, and it serves no practical function. It's like Blockbuster. Look, we have nostalgic feelings about it, but it was an outdated business model. We don't need it anymore. So, the lawmakers seem genuinely stunned about how many jobs operate under the independent contractor model in modern-day America. They really seem to have no clue. And no, they probably didn't. And let's be honest, they didn't research it well. Because here's the thing. They had this thing, like, they had a target on Uber and Lyft. They wanted to get them. But instead of getting like a handgun, which is probably all that they needed, they got a machete and shot it off. And before they realized it, they had struck more than what they wanted to strike. There were other companies caught in the crossfire, so to speak, that were doing things perfectly fine, perfectly legitimate, and now they are harming those businesses and the people who work for those businesses. I am, of course, one of them. But again, I will survive. I am resilient, and I am resourceful. I have several forms of income. This will be a hit come January, though. Those of us who chose to be independent contractors are not a small group of people. The Labor Department, as of 2018, said 1 in 10 Americans was working as an independent contractor, and while union members hit an all-time low in the United States in 2019, Intuit and Emergent Research say the number of Americans working in the gig economy will grow from 3.9 million in 2016 to 9.2 million by 2021. We're getting close to there. The lawmakers writing this legislation have no idea who the millions of us choosing to be independent contractors are, or how our industries operate, or why we want to remain our own bosses. Here in New Jersey, the power behind the legislation is State President Steve Sweeney, a 6-year-old high school graduate with no higher education on his resume, and whose day job is serving as vice president of the International Association of Bridge, Structural, Ornamental, and Reinforcing Iron Workers. His worldview matches that of the senators we came up against in the hearing room. They seem to truly believe we're all just confused about our ability to protect our own businesses. I think the fervor being built against these bills is largely made by large companies that want to continue to exploit workers. A true 1099 worker, we're not doing anything to you. We're not attacking that worker. They wound everyone up to a frenzy. Sorry, they wound everyone up to a frenzy right now. Based on the outcry that has erupted in New Jersey in the past few weeks, those of us in a frenzy are at the point of exasperation for good reason. The people raising their voices against this legislation, including working mothers who need flexible schedules to care for kids. They are people, I'm actually going to have to say something because this kind of actually, I think this is actually probably a good point to say this. When I went to the AB5, what was it? It's not it wasn't a protest. It was the pro rally, AB5 thing in Sacramento with Rideshare Professor and Dave the Uber Slave. We were watching people come up, ever so carefully, share their positive stories about driving for Uber and Lyft and being against AB5. And here's the thing. I'm not going to say all of them were fake, but it felt fake. And one person in particular came up and I said that was an actress. Now, I'm not going to say who that person was, because it was pretty vague in the video, but that person contacted me and we had a nice phone conversation, and this person was not an actress or an actor, as they prefer to be called. They were simply someone who did, in fact, strongly believe in what they were doing, wanted to remain an independent contractor, was perfectly fine. Now, they admitted that they were fairly new at the time when they made that speech and did not realize all the things that were going on and why a lot of drivers wanted this to happen. But, that was an example of someone who, genuinely did not want this to pass, and they had their reasons for not wanting it to pass. And so, as I've told people, if you have reasons for not wanting AB5 to pass, I can't tell you are wrong in feeling that way. And so I have to apologize to that person. But anyway, based on the outcry that has erupted in New Jersey in the past few weeks, those of us in a frenzy are at this point... Oh, sorry, we went over that already. They are people with disabilities who need to work whenever they feel up to it. They are people in professions that traditionally welcome women, jobs like marketing, publishing, public relations, teachers, and communications, but where full-time opportunities are not what they used to be. They are people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s who can thrive as independent contractors, but who, because of ageism, are likely to be last on the list as a full-time hire. Because of the uproar, much of it caused by my fellow writers and me, who have been publishing op-eds, banding together on Facebook, jamming state house phone lines, and more, lawmakers are now saying they may try to rework this deeply flawed legislation yet again. Some of us, including me, met with Sweeney and his staff this past week to discuss it. They are also saying that even if on paper people like me are made into lawbreakers for taking an in-person meeting with an editor, the state will interpret the law in a way that favors us. Believe them, they say. They promise. No, don't believe them. The government doesn't seem to understand anything. To me, that last bit sounds an awful lot like, if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. Frankly, I'm terrified, and everyone who works happily as an independent contractor should be, too. The independent contractor laws now being written in a handful of states are setting precedent for how the language is going to be written across the country. If we screw this up in New Jersey now, then millions of Americans stand to be screwed over later. It's time for an in-depth, smart, nuanced national conversation about the meaning of the term independent contractor in the age of the gig economy. We are the United States of America. We put men on the moon, invented the personal computer, and cured polio. Surely we can figure out a way to write legislation that protects both an exploited Uber driver and a six-figure freelancer. I agree. Now, here's the thing. AB5 has already passed in California, and the more that I found out about it, the more I'm kind of like, maybe this wasn't so good for other things. I am legitimately getting screwed by AB5, but I am willing to have a conversation about it because, again, I've been talking for a long time. Uber and Lyft and Postmates, they need to be in check. They need to be kept in check because they have exploited way too many people. They have just done this over and over again, and something needed to be done. And this is where the problem comes in, because if you write this bill that specifically targets just Uber and Lyft, it could rightfully be sued out of existence because it is discriminatory in nature. So they had to cast a wide net, but now they are affecting industries and jobs that should not be affected by this. This, by the way, includes nurses, psychologists, like medical fields that, they need to... It's scary. It's absolutely scary what AB5 is going to actually hurt. Now, do I regret throwing my support behind it and going out there and saying we need to pass. No, I don't. Absolutely not. And in fact, I wouldn't mind if AB5 was amended just a little bit. I would be okay if it just singled out gig economy worker. I think it was just a couple small changes, like the way the freelancer, so to speak, conduct themselves could make a world of difference on what constitutes as an independent contractor and employee. I believe that. But who knows? We won't know how that's going to work. I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. It's been signed. It's been passed. I mean, is there a strong case to overturn it in the election based on this discrepancy? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I would hate to think that Uber and Lyft are getting away with it again. But yeah, it is affecting people that it was not intended to infect, but it will now. So we need to talk about this. We absolutely do. In the meantime, I'm still leaning towards an AB5 is better than most. And if anything, maybe this should be a wake-up call for the rest of the country that Uber and Lyft have caused so much more damage since their inception than we want to admit, that maybe we need to just take a harder look on whether or not we want to do business with them in the first place. But that's where we're going to leave this right now. I want to know... Oh, sorry, I got hiccups all of a sudden. I want to know what you think about this. Please, comment below. Like, favorite, share, subscribe. If you enjoy my videos, consider becoming a Patreon member. It's totally optional, of course, but even as little as $1 a month goes a long way to help the channel run smoothly and get access to my private Discord server. If gas prices are getting just a little down, check out the Get Upside app below. It's totally free. We get cash back on every gas purchase. If you want more content from me, check out Kevin T. Rodriguez, the Apptrepreneur vlogs, and Autograph Hound. And finally, if you want to talk to me or other fellow rideshare drivers out there, check us out the Apptrepreneur Hangouts on Facebook. And as always, flame responsibly. Have a good one.